We're going to dive into the whole discussion about who the biggest draw is in professional wrestling between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. I've been seeing a lot of discourse about it. Roman fans arguing, Cody Rhodes fans arguing. Okay, I'm going to give my 2 cents, but it will be with factual evidence backed up. First things first, we're going to dive into the viewership, when Cody Rhodes was champion and also when Roman Reigns was champion, when they were both on SmackDown leading the forefront. Roman will have the 4 years I'll show, his consistent ratings, viewership he will get, as champion as opposed to Cody Rhodes, his consistent viewership he would get when he was champion on SmackDown as well. So this last column right here in the later half of 2020, when Roman came back from a hiatus, when he became champion, this is the viewership he would garner. Let's take a look at this column right here. 2021, when Roman became a full-time champion with the Bloodline leading the forefront, this is the ratings he would get on SmackDown consistently, and your average will show in the end. And then let's take a look at this column right here. 2022, this is when Roman was still champion with the Bloodline, leading the charge at the forefront with the WWE Championship. Universal Championship, and it will show the average at the end. Let's look at this column as well. This is 2023 when Roman was still champion with the Bloodline. The later half is around the time Roman became like a, more of a part-timer a bit. He was kind of in and out of the episodes, but he was still showing up as much as he can, and that will show your average. The first half of 2024 is the ending of Roman's championship reign. Was the viewership that Roman Reigns accumulated, when he was champion, leading the forefront on SmackDown. I showed the whole 4 years and stuff like that, and it showed the averages. And then we're going to dive into Cody Rhodes when he was champion for a year and a half. Now let's take a look at the later half of 2024 when Cody Rhodes became champion, when he beat Roman at WrestleMania. This is the viewership Cody Rhodes got when he was leading the forefront as WWE champion on SmackDown. So this is the first half of 2025 when Cody was still champion. This is the viewership he got on SmackDown. And as I just showed, the later half of 2024 and the beginning half of 2025 was when Cody Rhodes' championship reign took place. My observation, when I see these 2 reigns, in the viewership, that I just showed right now about, when Roman was champion and when Cody Rhodes was champion, you would see in the data I just showed, that Roman would consistently get 2 million viewerships consistently for 4.5 years, That's a hard thing to do. It's not easy. You can make a case that he had the Bloodline. Yes, he did have the Bloodline. But Roman is the WWE Championship. He's leading the forefront. Cody Rhodes, now, on the other hand, when Cody became champion, if you see in the data I just showed as well, Cody Rhodes, was still getting a bit 2.5 million around there. But then a couple of months, you would see a lot of the 1 millions going down, 1 millions. And then going into 2025, when Cody... the first half, which was his last half as champion in the early 2025 I showed, you would see that he struggled to get 2 million viewerships, as the WWE Championship leading the forefront on SmackDown. Let's also take a dive at, the amount of numbers and viewership that these 2 got, when they returned back to TV. So we'll look at the viewership, that Cody Rhodes garnered. This is when he returned back to WWE at WrestleMania 38. This is also Cody Rhodes' return, this year at Saturday Night's Main Event. This is the numbers he pulled. This is also more numbers that Cody Rhodes pulled as well, on Raw, working with CM Punk as well. This is also some more numbers that Cody Rhodes pulled, as WWE Champion on Raw with this segment with The Rock. This was Roman's return last year at SummerSlam. This is the amount of viewership he accumulated. And this past Monday Night Raw, this is the amount of numbers that Roman also accumulated as well. Get this, Roman Reigns' return this past Monday Night Raw is the most viewed return of 2025. Let that sink in. Let's also talk about the numbers that the Bloodline would pull with Roman still being the WWE Champion, leading the forefront. Another one as well with Bloodline leading the forefront as well with Roman as WWE Champion. Y'all remember this segment right here of 2023. This was the most watched segment of the year, June 2nd of 2023. Roman was still WWE Champion. This is pretty much self-explanatory. This is what the Bloodline pulled. Roman was still WWE Champion at the time with the Bloodline running the forefront. My observation of what I just showed right now, you would see, even though Cody Rhodes is still pulling a lot of numbers, in the part I showed about Cody, you would see that Roman Reigns is completely outweighing Cody Rhodes, him and the Bloodline by a mile. But let's also go into this. And post WrestleMania, this is pretty much the questions that news outlets, pretty much were starting to observe about Cody Rhodes as WWE champion. Which finally leads me back to my original question. Who is the biggest draw in professional wrestling between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes? And it is Roman Reigns, without a doubt. Cody Rhodes fans, I guess they don't want to accept it, but the whole QB1 about Cody Rhodes is the QB1. Nah, Roman Reigns is the QB1, the needle mover, the biggest star attraction, the biggest star between him and Cody Rhodes, and it's not even close, But we're going to close it out with this, and if y'all think I'm lying, just wait till this part. And this is a cherry on top. WWE officials were being desperate to bring Roman back. TKO was begging for Roman. Ari Emanuel and WWE Nick Khan were adamant about Roman coming back to WWE. Because pretty much All In was beating them on numbers. And they had to run. WWE wants to maintain a strong hold over the professional wrestling market share. And Roman is the biggest star and the biggest draw in all of wrestling. And that just ends my video. Roman Reigns is the biggest star of professional wrestling when it comes between him and Cody Rhodes, and it's not even close. TKO's being desperate. Cody Rhodes fans, please, does that answer your question now? Because this was a lot.